Centuries after the event that shattered the world, humanity is finally starting to shake off the rust and reclaim its lost glory. Industrialism teaches us that through sacrifice and labor, prosperity will be achieved. But there are some who have no desire to work or to sacrifice and would rather stew in their decadence at the cost of others. Boss Bill was one such man. He ruled with terror and consorted with barbarians, until his people could stand for it no longer. Under the leadership of Burton, a highly educated young man brought to court to tutor the boss's children, the tyrant boss was overthrown. Burton was then chosen by the people to lead as the new boss of Saginaw. Burton did not have the skills to lead armies, to navigate the politics of Michigan, or to manipulate court intrigue to his favor. But he did know how to think. If he was to stay boss, he would need to pacify the lands of Saginaw as well as those of wider Michigan. He and most of the realms around him followed the Galvanizing Assembly, the most powerful of the industrial faiths. To his east was the great city of Detroit. It is the largest city in Michigan, and it is one of the holy sites of our faith. It had been conquered by the Vikings and ruled over by them for 20 years. The Vikings used their longships to sail out of Minnesota, raiding all across the Great Lakes, sometimes even settling the lands they ravaged. Detroit was one such land until it was liberated by Coleman for the industrialist religion. That is something he and Burton had in common, as Saginaw was similarly liberated from a tyrant. Burton knew Detroit would make a powerful ally. To Saginaw's south were the lands of mid-Michigan. They were divided between industrialists and Catholics, constantly warring with each other. This land would have to be tamed. On the western coast of Michigan were the heretic Prometheans. They twisted the doctrines of industry for their own purpose, worshipping the titans of industry as if they were divine themselves. They must be taught the error of their ways before they ruin all of Michigan with their short-sighted pursuit of power. And finally, up north were the Up-Northerners, who ruled over the forests of up north. Clearly not an imaginative folk, they worship the lakes. They are mere pagans. Their subjugation will bring many people into the light of industry. But first, Burton must put his own house in order. The former boss allowed brutal Viking raiders to settle in Saginaw. Burton's first decree was that these foreigners give their stolen lands back to the people. As expected, they rose in rebellion. With good industrial steel, they were driven back to the icy wasteland of Minnesota. Now that Burton could use the full power of Saginaw, he decided he would keep up the momentum. He married a woman of faraway Illinois and betrothed his child to a Gordy of Detroit. With these allies, he pushed into mid-Michigan, installing one of his courtiers as the new director of Flint. At the same time, his holy man, his Union rep, created a claim on Mount Pleasant. After a quick war, Mount Pleasant was brought under Saginaw rule. Burton saw that Michigan and the Great Lakes area was diverse. If he is to rule here, he must be seen as a tolerant ruler. And so he gave refuge to any foreigners that would serve him. But his tolerance had its limits. Now that he bordered the heretic Prometheans, he made it his first priority to debate them on the teachings of industry. His argument would be the sword. But he was not supported in this by the chief engineer. The chief engineer led the Galvanizing Assembly in its interpretations of industry doctrine. His Holiness wasn't convinced by Burton's claim that he only wished to increase the glory of industry by his conquests. Burton knew that having the chief engineer on side would be beneficial for his rule. His Holiness could sanction wars, grant claims on foreign lands, and so on. Only a few years ago he had granted Burton a claim on the Greater Reserve, as its current tycoon was only a child. With His Holiness's support, Burton could liberate all of Michigan and beyond. By going on a pilgrimage, he had proved his devotion to industry, and was allowed to attack the heretic stronghold of West Michigan. As to be expected of a people so ruthlessly ambitious as the Prometheans, they were embroiled in a civil war. This made them an easy conquest. All that stood in the way of Burton's dominion over Michigan were the lake-worshipping up-northerners. With our ally, Coleman the Liberator of Detroit, we subjugated their tribes one by one, placing good Michigander industrialists to rule over them. The only land left still controlled by the up-northerners was in the deep forests, far from their precious lakes. Burton decided that they were no longer a threat, and allowed them the reservation. For now. With most of Michigan under his control, Burton had a right to declare himself Tycoon of all of Michigan. With the help of the chief engineer, he had the necessary resources as well. With his rule over Michigan now recognized, Burton's friend Coleman was happy to swear fealty to him. The director of Mid-Michigan, who had been swayed by Burton, was also peacefully vassalized. Burton now made sure that not only Saginaw, but all of Michigan was safe from infidel tyranny. And yet, what right did he have to stop now? The chief engineer had granted him the right to take the Greater Reserve. And industrialists all across the Great Lakes were menaced by savage raiders and foreign conquest. No, Burton decided he would not stop until all industrialists were free or he was dead. His next target was clear, the Tycoonship of Greater Reserve. But between them and Michigan lay a strange little realm, the Duchy of Maumee. It was the only realm in the area that followed the Muslim religion. They must have been devoted to their faith, as no one else in the region worshipped as they did. Nevertheless, this caused them to be isolated. Without any allies, their little duchy could not stand against the might of Michigan. Maumee had controlled the county of Toledo. Back in the days of the American Empire, the states of Michigan and Ohio had warred over this little strip of land. Burton could now claim it for Michigan once and for all, earning himself the nickname Wolverine. Now the reserve was open to us. After years of regency, and constantly being raided by butternutter tribesmen, they were in turmoil. Conquering them was easy, but the hard part was proving that we can hold on to the land. Sensing weakness, the butternutters invaded the reserve. Fighting in the forests of the riverlands was difficult and deadly. The enemy would sap our supply, causing our soldiers to starve. Eventually, Burton had to augment his armies with mercenary companies, almost bankrupting the realm. After 5 years of brutal war, the butternutters were driven back. Having proven our strength, many industrialist bosses and directors agreed to swear fealty to us in exchange for protection, including our wife's father, who had supported us throughout our endeavors. Burton had no intention of repeating the debacle that was the Butternutter War. In order to ensure that Michigan's armies would be able to endure any assault, he would reorganize them. Using the reparations paid by the Butternutter tribes, he created several new regiments of men-at-arms. The most distinguished of these regiments was the picket line, elite spearmen who could withstand any enemy's charge. With his reinvigorated army, Burton decided it was time to take Chicago. It is the largest city in the Great Lakes area, and it is the traditional seat of the chief engineer. Currently, it is held by the Conclavian Catholics. This holy city had to be brought under industrialist control. The Catholic religion is spread over vast swathes of land. Ostensibly, it is all ruled by the Pope from St. Louis. Fortunately, the papacy is more of a ceremonial position, not unlike our own chief engineer. The actual Catholic lords are much more fractured than they appear. It seems that the Duke of Chicago stands alone, and Burton can take it for industrialists everywhere. Before the event that shattered America and the rest of the world, Michigan used to own the northern peninsula that cradles Lake Superior. Now it is ruled by the Vikings, who use it as a base to launch raids on the civilized people of the Great Lakes. By retaking the northern peninsula for Michigan, Burton will put an end to the Viking threat, once and for all. Our cause for war was bringing industry to the Viking infidels, to teach them to build instead of just taking and destroying. The Vikings were aware that this was an existential war for them, so perhaps for the first time in history they united to try and fight us off. A huge Viking horde consisting of men from all the Viking tribes disembarked on the shores of Saginaw. There were so many of them that even the great Michigander army could not be confident in victory. Before the capital of Michigan could be taken, Burton formed an alliance with the Queendom of Hudsonia. After all, the Vikings were the enemies of all who would live in peace and prosperity on the shores of the Great Lakes. Michigan's army was encamped in Detroit, as that great city could supply the soldiers with all the necessities they might need. When they were reinforced by the Hudsonians, they marched out to meet the Vikings in battle. They arrived just in time, as the Vikings were mere days away from breaking through the walls of Saginaw, possibly capturing Tycoon Burton himself and winning the war. The battle was fierce, but by industrious grace, the Michiganders carried the day. With the Viking host broken, Burton ordered his generals to invade Superior itself. The lands of the northern peninsula were wild and could not support a large army. The Michigander generals did not want a repeat of the Butternut fiasco, so they split their soldiers into smaller groups. They besieged multiple castles at once, but they were ready to recombine if the Vikings tried to counterattack. Slowly, one by one, the Viking strongholds fell, until Burton could declare victory, not just for Michigan, but for all the enemies of the Vikings. But it was Michigan that benefited the most. Just as it was before the event, it now controlled the northern peninsula by law, as well as in fact. Michigan has become the largest industrial realm. It controls much of the Great Lakes area, and it is unchallenged by any of its neighbors. It was only right that Burton proclaimed the industry of the Steel Belt, and himself its magnate. Chicago was made the new capital. In celebration of the Steel Belt's forming, our vassals in Detroit restored the great industrialist temple. Burton had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. To think that he was once just a low-born scholar. The Steel Belt didn't yet hold all industrialist lands. Yet, with the support of the chief engineer, now situated in Holy Chicago, it was only a matter of time. Burton let his generals conduct the wars for the last independent tycoonships, while he focused on the contemplation of industry. In his old age, he became known as an accomplished theologian. He made pilgrimages to the holiest of places, such as Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Even as his body started to weaken, his mind remained strong. One day, while thinking of his first success, how he led a peasant uprising to liberate Saginaw from tyranny, he had an epiphany. The galvanizing assembly under the chief engineer could never truly understand industry. The assembly is a bunch of aristocrats who probably didn't know a day's honest work. Industry serves the farmers who labor in the fields, soldiers who raise swords in its defense, and the bosses that work tirelessly so their realm functions like a machine. In order for industry to be made manifest, the decadent assembly must be cast aside. The only people worthy of interpreting industrial doctrines are the people who work to bring it about. Using his considerable influence, he created a new industrialist faith, the workers' councils, under whose teachings all who labor, whether with plow, sword or pen, shall have a say in society, just like in ancient America, where life, liberty and pursuit of happiness was a right. In order to restore the Gilded Age of before the event, Burton realized America must be restored as well as industry. From now on, the Councilists, as the followers of this new faith became known, shall recognize the President of America in Washington as their spiritual head of faith. This way, industrialists ingratiated themselves to the Americanists of the East Coast, allowing them to work together to restore America. Reinvigorated by his new mission, Burton used his legendary status as a holy figure to convert most of the Steel Belt to Councilism, as well as to declare another great holy war. This time he expanded his realm into the East Coast, the birthplace of America. A holy order was founded, and a great temple built in Chicago to rival the one in Detroit. It is at this time that the president died. Burton seized the opportunity to declare himself the new president. Unfortunately, he was stripped of his presidency as soon as the Americanists elected a president. Evidently, this whole election business was an unfamiliar concept to Burton. Still, his short time in office wasn't wasted. During that time, he declared the start of the interventions, allowing future presidents to declare great holy wars to help restore America. In the last years of his life, Burton never stopped fighting. Having become a holy legend twice over, he was able to conquer Hudsonia for his faith. This was after a Hudsonian rebellion that ended their alliance with the Steel Belt. Thanks to having absolute power over their Steel Belt, he was able to designate a preferred heir. Despite having male preference succession, he designated a daughter, as she was a prodigy he was confident would be able to take over after him. Burton was now so respected that he had the right to wear the sunglasses of glory. He harnessed this respect to instill into his people a tradition of life by the sword. After all, what was his reign if not one long campaign of war? His greatness was such that even the president recognized him as a paragon, consecrating his bloodline for all of his descendants. He died of a heart attack at the age of 84, passing the industry of the Steel Belt and the dream of restoring America to his daughter. Whether she will be able to live up to her father's hopes remains to be seen. But Burton's story is over.